on 10, on 11, on 12, on 13, 14. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to say a huge congratulations to the events officer and to all of the staff of the Town Council that have supported the event so far this year. I think it's kicked off to be an exemplary year. The weather obviously helped this last weekend, but the big luncheon itself with 120 odd older people enjoying themselves out here on the lawn in a marquee. And then this weekend, there must have been 4,000 or 5,000 people from the pictures that I saw. It's just a tremendous start to our year of events, and just really want to, at this early stage, acknowledge the hard work that goes in.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. I'm sure we'll all echo those thanks. Brilliant events. Okay, moving on to item minute 115, 116, 117, 118. Okay, so it has been moved and seconded that the report be received. Those in favour? Thank you, that's unanimous. I declare the motion to be carried. So we move on to grounds and environmental services on the 10th of June, which you'll find on page 13 of your agenda pack, and I'm calling Councillor Richard Atwell.
Thank you. I propose that the Grounds and Environmental Services Committee meeting on 10th of June 2024 be approved.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Atwell. Is the motion seconded?
Madam Mayor, I'm happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. So minute 119, 120, 121, 122, 123, 24, 125, 126, 127, 128, 129, 130. It has been moved and seconded that the report be received. Those in favour? Is unanimous. I declare the motion to be carried. Thank you. And now we have Finance and General Purposes Committee, which was held on the 17th of June 2024. You'll find it at page 18 of your agenda. And I call upon Councillor Gregory Alderman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm pleased to propose the minutes of the Finance and General Purposes Committee held on the 17th of June.
Thank you. Is the motion seconded?
Madam Mayor, place the second motion.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Tomorrow. Okay, so minute 131, 132, 133, 134, 135, 136, 137, 138, 139, 140, 141, and 142. It has been moved and seconded that the report be received. Those in favour? It's unanimous. I declare the motion to be carried. Thank you all for those reports. So now we move on to item 7, which is the action tracker. There is only one item on the tracker, and that's to discuss the market charter, which is actually the next item on our agenda. In 8 market charter. The report is on page 24, and I'm going to hand over to our Chief Executive Town Clerk, Paul Thompson.
Thank you, so members, this is to, as you know, previously at a meeting we talked at some length about the market charter. We have a representative come and talk to us from TAPMA, and we agreed that the subject would come back for discussion. We put it off for discussion because we've had some pretty agendas. But looking at how best to construct a discussion, actually felt to be better to have a group of members who meet once or twice to go through the details and legal implications with us and then come back to council for a recommendation, rather than try and make the full decision in a full council meeting where you might not have enough time and freedom to examine it properly. So the proposal is to set up a working group to meet probably 2 times, but that group would be able to agree that with probably 6 to 8 members to make it a viable number. And we would then report back a recommendation to full council.
Thank you. Okay, so we've got 3 recommendations there. Would anybody like to discuss those recommendations with regards to forming a working group for the market?
No, if I may.
Is the main point to actually decide to give the Hound Regis the ability to hold the market still, or is there a further purpose to the working group?
The reason arises from the conversation we've had about the market charter, which originated with a request from Houghton Regis. But there are obviously several options that members might want to look at.
So I think we've seen previously that when we've had items to discuss or to put forward as a council, it's been really helpful for us to develop a working group. So we had one for the transport consultation, CBC, when we met at the end of last week. And it's really helpful to talk about that outside of normal council meetings. But I think this is a really good idea to form a group of 6 to 8 members. Councillor Jones?
Madam Mayor, I'm happy to put myself forward for it as Chairman of Community Services, but I think it would be good to have a cross range of representation from across the council, both ward and groups as well. I think it's best to have a voice for cross party.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to be on this group if possible. I'm very interested in this issue.
So we will obviously go to a vote on each recommendation, and then we'll talk about who will form part of the group if we do actually vote it through. Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to request that, should the working group go ahead, that we record the meeting so that in the interests of openness and transparency, that any discussions that occur within that meeting are recorded, especially as this is possibly going to become a contentious issue, and that it does involve a neighbouring authority, and we don't want to sever any ties with that authority. We want to be open and transparent about everything that we do. So I'd just like to make that request. Thanks.
Yeah, I guess if we were discussing a formal meeting, I'd be recommending we go to confidential session, because this is about, to some extent, about this council's commercial and legal interests. So perhaps the request would be a working group, but those working group is minuted in kind of formal fashion, the minutes circulated amongst members.
Okay.
That's all right. Yeah, with all that being said, I'm happy to put my name forward. I think it's a really good idea, and a really good opportunity.
Councillor Adams. Councillor Gurney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I think I agree with Councillor Jones and Councillor Alderman and Councillor Trevor about putting myself forward to be on this committee. I think it'd also be helpful to have a member of the Central Beds Council be on the committee as well. Thank you.
Gurney. Okay, is there any more comments or questions? Councillor Gurney.
I'm also happy to serve if required, Madam Mayor.
Okay, well, it seems that everybody's quite happy with the recommendations. So if you're all okay with it, I shall propose that we vote on all 3 recommendations, unless you'd rather I go through them separately. So 1.1 is that the council forms a markets working group 1.2, that members agree a representative group of 6 to 8 members to form the group. 1.3, that the group meets approximately twice, once to receive a briefing on the current use of the charter by the council and the projected impact of any changes, and then to review options and agree a recommended approach to full council. Is there a proposal for those recommendations?
Pros.
Is there any?
Madam Mayor, I'm happy to second.
You councillor Baker. Those in favour of those recommendations? That is unanimous. I declare the motion to be carried. Thank you. Okay, so whilst you're on this subject, we will identify between 6 to 8 members of the working group now, if that's okay. We've got 4 already with Councillor Alderman, Councillor Jones, Councillor Adams, Councillor John Gurney, Councillor Kenson Gurney. It would be good to have a balanced group, so I wonder, Councillor Baker, are you
Yes,
proposing yourself?
yes, I'm proposing myself.
Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6. Well, that's 7. We have one more.
Well, but if you go on 3 of these, then you need.
Okay, so Councillor Blenheim it.
That takes us to 8.
You would need one to be proportionately representative
Yeah.
of the council.
Is that either 2, 2, and 2, or 3, 3, and 3?
And so
Just the outside or?
if we've got 2 independents for the 2 Gurneys, then
Which is 3.
that would be 3.
Got 3 Conservative. One more over to that.
Well, we took it down.
So should we make it 9? Councillor Henderson, thank you. Okay, we have our group.
Including you.
Well, that's the whole council.
If I go on it, then that makes it 10. Okay, we've got a 9. Okay, thank you, everybody. I imagine that we will be in touch with details of the first working group date and time. Okay, thank you. So moving on to item 9, transparency and public engagement. You'll find the report on page 29 of the agenda pack. Going to hand over to our town clerk and chief executive, Paul Hudson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So you may remember that about this time last year, FGP received a report on public engagement, and as new members at the time, you were very keen that we were as open and transparent and engaging with the public as possible. So we took a few measures in that direction. One is we carried on streaming meetings, and we've now bought the better equipment, which is working really well. We actually decided to include a section for public meetings of all committees, which hasn't been included on agendas, so we will correct that going forwards. Although speaking to chairs have always been of the view who I've spoken to the last year, that if a member of the public actually wants to speak, we would make space for them on something relevant to the agenda. It will help to have it as an agenda item so people know that opportunity is there. We set up the monthly surgeries, so the report recommendation is to carry on as we are, with the principle that once a month, ward by ward, and it's really up to ward members to agree among themselves where and when and how within each ward. And that approach seems to be going well, but interested in views members. And also to review standing orders. So at the moment, if a member of the public wants to speak at a meeting, they have to tell us beforehand, they have to notice beforehand that they want to speak and idea what they're going to say. Now, the idea of that is it means we're able to provide the intelligent response, an informed response. But obviously that does restrict somebody from seeing that something's being discussed tonight and just turning up and having something to say about it. So there are 2 ways of looking at that. And also the recommendation is, rather than saying that a member of the public can only address members on this is just for full council, not for committee. rather than saying that a member of the public must address you on some things relevant to the agenda of the meeting, and that you can see there's a logic to that, but to widen it out to members of the public can address you on anything relevant to town council's business. So actually, if a member of the public wants to come and speak about something that's not on the agenda, but is relevant to town council, often when a member of the public comes and speaks, the response will be, thank you for talking to us, we'll go and think about it and get back to you anyway. So that way you may well say, thank you for that, and then contact me and say we want something on the next agenda to take that forwards. So they're the recommendations for your discussion.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, so perhaps if we go through them in order and open up discussion. So recommendation 1.1 is to continue to stream council and committee meetings live. I think that's been working quite well. Any questions or comments? Okay. 1.2 is to continue to provide social media messages alerting residents when items of particular interest are to be discussed in council meetings. Again, I think that's been working well. Anyone have any questions or comments on that? Jones?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think personally we'd probably be a little bit more consistent in doing that and sharing the agenda. For me, it feels like it's a little bit hit and miss. Sometimes we do it, sometimes we don't. I don't think any of our meetings this term of council meetings has gone online, or if they have, it may only be one of them. So I think we need to be a little bit more consistent in getting the messages out. I've got some other points, so I will come back as we get to those.
Jones? Certainly.
Just to respond back on that, it's our experience of posting about council meeting agendas on social media, which I'm really keen to do, I'm keen to increase engagement in that way, is that there has to be a hook on that message. So if you look at who expresses interest and likes and follows us based on our social media messages, we would have hundreds from Dunstable Live. If we put on Dunstable Council meeting tonight, maybe one or two. So the comparison is quite dramatic. So there is a skill around finding things that are of interest and explaining in a social media fashion why it's relevant to people of Dunstable. So I think I absolutely take the point to work hard with that and focus on finding ways of doing that each round. But I don't think we can guarantee, we'll certainly not for every meeting. So I think we need to keep trying to find ways of doing it, but acknowledge that just putting on a post saying it's a council meeting tomorrow night is going to interest almost nobody. You have to find a way of saying it's a council meeting tomorrow night and we're talking about this planning application, or we're talking about dropping council tax or something that people don't go, actually, I care about that, and therefore I'm going to engage with them.
Any more comments on that recommendation? Okay, so 1.3, to continue to hold monthly surgeries called open public meetings to be circulated between the 5 wards. Those are our councillor surgeries that are held in different wards. I think they've been quite popular in the sense that people find them open and we're more accessible, but perhaps the numbers could increase. Okay, who was on first? Councillor Gurney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I think these meetings have gone very well. And I also think it's been a good idea to hold them at different times of the week and at different times of the day. I attended the one we held last Friday in the South Ward, and that was in conjunction with an existing coffee morning. And although there were quite a few people there was probably about 20 to 25, they had the more accessible reason to come up and talk to us, and found the opportunity to do that. So I think that went very well.
Thank you, Councillor Gurney. Next, I have Councillor Tamara.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just feels a bit of observation on this public meetings. In some ways, I think they are a good idea, but I do feel we could possibly find a better way to do this. So I'm just thinking in terms of the relevance. Let's look at the numbers then, because the numbers will speak for itself, if you would allow me. Because I'm looking at this number and I'm just thinking, is this in terms of the time being spent, if the venue are being paid for, do we really think this is a better way? Or can we make ourselves more available in a sense? If our residents do need us, which they do email us most time, if something is pressing, people would contact their councillor. Most people do email through if they have issues. And I'm just really looking at the numbers. I'll give you the last example here is the one in the north, for example. Nobody turns up. Okay, the reality though is, can we do something a bit different? Can we allow the resident to, can we put a newsletter out on the boards that we have in every, in the different areas? Is there a way we can, advertise a little bit more? If we're going to continue to do this, there's got to be a lot more done within the local area. I look on some of the boards around and I can't see anything about this meeting on them. Okay. I'm just worried about if you're paying for the hall, number one, the time that you spend, traveling there and, waiting for all those hours. I think we should consider whether or not this is a good way to spend our time.
Thank you, Councillor Tamar. I think just to come back on that, these are the surgeries are new. They're organised by the town council for us to work together, regardless of our views. We're able to join the meeting from whichever ward we come from. And I think at the moment we're feeling our way as to what does work and what doesn't. So it's we're kind of testing the water in a lot of senses and having them at different times of the day, etc. And I understand your point. The one in the north recently, I went along to it, and it was myself and Councillor Brennan, and we didn't have any members of the public come and see us. However, we had a really good chat actually ourselves, so it wasn't a wasted evening. But yeah, I agree with your point in that it does need to be more widely advertised, and maybe there needs to be more consistency so residents know when we're meeting. I like the idea of asking the public of how they might like to access us, and maybe we could do a poll on Facebook, for example, to ask that question.
To touch on a couple of points from fellow councillor. One of the costs is fairly minimal. In fact, the cost on Friday there was no cost for the hall at all, and obviously our own time is given freely, and we have publications from the council to hand out to the members of the public. In fact, Friday turned out better than I expected, being a weekday in the morning at 10 o'clock. Obviously, we had a little bit of a captive audience, which is actually an improvement, because we went to them more than them coming to us. And since it's an old audience, it was much easier for them to interact with us. Great. Rather than going out in the evening or a weekend when they find it more difficult. So yes, we've got to play around with the formats, some to reach different audiences at different times. But certainly the new one of going to a coffee morning where we know the audience is going to be there already certainly guarantees interaction. It also, a comment which I picked up, and I think if you read my report, was that then walking around the tables to speak to people, you then start to elicit problems that you do have but didn't think were that important. The other thing as well for the elderly group is emails and the web are not something they normally deal with, so actually having a person there is much easier to deal with. And then we can also, like John's done as well, we can then use our own technology to register their problems on things like Fix My Street, which they wouldn't normally be able to do.
Thank you, Councillor Kowalski. I've got Councillor Jones and then Councillor Baker, and then hopefully we can move on to the next recommendation. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm in agreement that we should persevere and that we need to see how the next round goes. Grove Coolman to me was probably, it was the first one we did. and it was probably the one that had the biggest footfall because you've always got a passing trade. It's also our building, so it didn't attract a cost. The splash park was another one that went well and was the second most populated session, again, our building. So should we be looking to use our buildings, our premises to deliver these surgeries from? You can still have them at different times, different days, but actually we've got facilities, why not start to use them and to think about it? I hear what you're saying about your captive audience, and I just wonder where else there are captive audiences that we could go and visit. You know, some of you are able to attend during the working day, most of it, you know, some of us can't. But if you haven't yet been to one of our surgeries, and I know there's some people that haven't been able to get to some of them yet, please do come and share the load and come and be part of the community that we all signed up to supporting and representing when we became councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Baker?
I was just wondering how much we have actually spent on the venues that we've had the surgeries at. Just as a, so we know.
So, members, obviously we spent a little bit of money at the outset on banners, which we've got them anyway now, so regardless. Lisa's just been searching as we've been sat here, so November cost us, November was £20, April was £30, May was £20. So you're looking at £25 a month or free on some occasions. So in terms of cost of democracy, I'd say that's not unreasonable. Officers don't go, so from my point of view, it's something members are doing, and that I think is working quite well. Georgia helps prepare the stuff and then takes the stuff back, and we do some of the comms around it. So in terms of comms, we could quite easily print off a set of A4 notices for each one and maybe give those to ward members, because you will know better than we do where to put them. So when you get down to ward level, you're the experts. So maybe we could do that for each one, and then you can work out amongst yourselves where to put them. Also, to say we are talking to Jill's team about the coffee mornings that team runs and trying to fit some of them with their coffee mornings. That could work really well along the line. So anything else we do over time, we'll think about how we fit in with those as well. And just also to mention, we have got the member store at Dunstable Live coming up, which some of you have signed up for, which isn't quite the same, but again, it's the same principle, using our events as a way of making yourselves available to members of the public.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I would like to add one other thing. Is there has been mention of social media. Several of us use social media to promote things that the council are doing and things that happen around the town. And we often get feedback about anything that's defective, anything that needs repairs. And often, you know, we're saying to people, well, you can come and talk to us about all kinds of things. So it's really, these meetings are a great opportunity to people to come. If they're held as an open public meeting, people can have an open discussion. If they want to see someone individually, they can do that. But we're giving people the opportunity. And you know, hopefully the figures will improve. Hopefully more people will come. But I think we should persist with it, and we should be giving people the opportunity to come and see us.
Thank you, Councillor Galley. Councillor Commando.
I agree with Councillor Lees, and just in terms of having this, for us to be more persistent and being accessible to members of the public and consistency. So if we have the dates and time, and even if there are different days, and we've sent the invites out to people, or we've put it on social media, then they will be able to identify when and the days that can be able to attend. I think it's quite positive if we continue being available to the people.
Okay, so I'm going to move on to 1.4, which is to include a public question time section in the agenda for each committee meeting, as well as at full council. So this is obviously a new introduction that was raised recently, that perhaps we could add it in to make ourselves a little bit more accessible and enable members of the public to bring questions to council. The floor is yours, guys. Any questions or comments on that? Councillor Jones?
I have no issue with going forward with it. What would happen if 20 people turned up? they all had 3 minutes to speak. Because we just need to be careful in what we open up, and I think we just need to balance it out. Somehow we need to find a way of saying, yes, we want to do it, but limiting the number per session, because we could be here for hours with public questions. The only thing is get a topic that's a heated topic in the town that the town council are involved with, and we could be here all evening and not get to our other agenda items.
Thank you, councillor Jones. I think Paul wants to come back on that, but we spoke about it briefly earlier, and if you look at the amount of people that come to our meetings, I'm not sure that it would open a can of worms in terms of lots of people needing to speak, but it would probably also be up to the chair's discretion for each of those committee meetings as well, so in terms of how long people speak, sorry. Is that right?
Yeah, I was trying to find the constitution. I believe the constitution says it's up to 15 minutes for public questions and up to 3 minutes per speaker. So it's very much at the chair's discretion. If you have 20 people there, you can either gather people together before the meeting and say, look, there's 15 minutes. Can you work out amongst yourselves? And usually in those circumstances, people will then manage themselves accordingly to fit that process. It does give the chair freedom. So as the chair, you might think this is incredibly important. Therefore, you want to give people 20 minutes or half an hour because this is a massive moment and that's the right thing to do. But as chair, you have got that freedom to limit the public session to 15 minutes, regardless of how many people there are, and let people manage themselves appropriately. Whatever happens, if you get 20 people turn up and all want to speak, the chair's got a challenge, but the chair has got some tools to manage that challenge.
Councillor Brennan?
Thank you, Chair. I think personally, if 20 people, 20 members of the public turned up to one of our meetings, I would think, oh my God, good. Like we're actually doing something and people are actually paying attention to us. That's absolutely fantastic. Let's actually listen to people and take on board what they say, because that's literally what we're here to do. So I'm very supportive of this. I asked for it at a meeting not long ago. I think it would be really, really important for us because it opens the doors where people actually come here, they sit and they can't speak, and then they're asked to leave, and that's absolutely ridiculous. So yes, please, can we include it? Thanks.
Thank you, councillor Brennan. Councillor Commando, and then I think we'll move on to the final one.
I'm thinking of the mayor, just a question, if we had about 20 people attending and within that period of them asking questions, can we be able to take on questions and answer them back? Just a question.
Possibly.
Councillor Jones?
Sorry, I'm just going to come back because 15 years of being a councillor, there have been 2 or 3 occasions, Peter will understand where I'm going with this, where we have had a heavily populated council chamber, where we've had to open those doors and we've had people sat on the stairs because there's been so many for certain topics. So to say that, you know, it won't happen, it may well. And one of the topics we've discussed today was one of those topics a long time ago now, the market. So just be conscious of what you're saying. I'm not against it, but we just need to manage it. And as Paul's explained, it's down to chairman's discretion, but it does happen and has happened in recent years.
Thank you, councillor Jones. I think it might be helpful for those chairs to go on the chairs training, because that you get some really good skills on how to manage those difficult conversations or questions. Councillor Tamara.
Thank you. Just a point of clarification. So in terms of would the member of the public would need to obviously register for, or would just be an open room and they would come in and it really doesn't matter, they don't have to register for this session?
That is part of the recommendation.
So okay, I think it's a fantastic idea. I think it's you know, creating accessibility for the member of public to come in and speak to their council, and the council be able to, you know, provide them with answer the best that they could on the day that they feel that, you know, the meeting is going on. I definitely support the idea of it. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Tamara. So yeah, so the next one, 1.5, actually covers that. So that recommendation is to amend the standing orders in regard to public questions at meetings to request rather than require members of the public to submit questions 3 days in advance. Allow members of the public to address full council on any matter relevant to the town council services and responsibilities. So to basically remove that need to register 3 days in advance. Questions or comments on 5? Okay, so I'll go through them in order. So recommendation 1.1. Continue to stream council and committee meetings live. I need to propose this myself. Do I have a proposer?
No, I'm happy to propose that we go through 1.1 to 1.5 as in on block. And then
Madam Mayor, I'm happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Jones and Councillor Gurney. Those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you for making that a lot quicker. I declare the motion to be carried. Okay, so 14.2 is to agree a response to Central Bedfordshire Council's draft local transport plan. There is a consultation out at the moment which closes on the 30th of June, and it was suggested that we provide a response as a council, as Dunstable Town Council, to that consultation. Myself, Councillor Jones, Councillor Alderman and Councillor Atwell met last week to put together a response which has been circulated to you all. Hopefully you've had a chance to look through it. Are there any questions, comments? Councillor Katarski.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wondered if it's possible to add a further point to the report. It's if we could possibly mention the fact that the B bus serving Downside is unreliable, with scheduled buses being dropped without notice. Previously served Priory Garden Surgery. Since they moved to the new health hub, distance from the stop at College Drive is proving too far for the elderly passengers who are in most need of a surgery coming from the area. Proper stop service could include a stop at the surgery and loop round to the West Ward as well.
Councillor Katarski, I know we've received that comment in writing. I don't see any reason why we can't add it to our response. Next I have Councillor Jones.
So if you've read the response that we've put together, you'll notice that we've suggested whether the council could explore in the future the idea of offering a hop and stopper service across Dunstable, focusing on particular the wards that are struggling with their bus services. And I know North Ward, you've got some issues with some of your residents, South Ward has, and West Ward certainly has. So 3 out of our 5 wards are really at a disadvantage at the moment. So we would like to at some stage bring back to the council an opportunity to discuss whether or not as a town council it would be feasible to consider and explore the opportunity to run something similar to the old hop and stopper in the 80s. If you want to explore further, Harpenden Council, just up the road, have done something very similar. Done a little bit of homework, and there's quite a few local councils and parishes that have taken things forward. So it might be an opportunity to bring forward an opportunity to have that conversation.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Any other questions, comments, or are we happy to order that? Okay, is there a proposer for us to agree the response to Central Bedfordshire Council's draft local transport plan?
Madam Mayor, I'm happy to propose it.
Thank you, Councillor Gurney. Do I have a seconder?
And I'm happy to second that.
Thank you, Councillor Katarski. So those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you. I declare that motion to be carried. Moving on to item 10, we've got the annual governance statement and internal audit report, which you will find on pages 30 to 49 of your agenda pack. And I'm going to pass over to Luther Shader to present.
Good evening, councillors. So you've all received the report for the annual governance and accountability return for the financial year 23-24. So I'll just run through the actions recommended to receive and note the internal audit report for the final report for 23-24. This was also presented to Finance and General Purposes Committee last Monday, but your members will be pleased to note the report concludes that the council maintains an adequate and effective system of internal control throughout the year. 1.2, to approve a recommendation made by the Finance and General Purposes Committee on the 17th of June to appoint the internal auditor for financial year 24-25. Attached to the report, Appendix 2 shows a 3-year plan that we were presented with at 22-23, which so it includes the financial year 24-25 as the year 3. Belfast Town Council have been with the current internal auditors for many years, got a productive relationship, and we would ask members that the appointment is extended for a further 1 year to fulfil the strategic plan that we've enclosed. And moving on to 1.3, to approve the annual governance statement and the accounting statements as part of the annual governance and accountability return for the financial year ending 31st of March 24. For submission to the external auditor in compliance with the Local Audit and Accountability Act 2014 and the Accounts and Audit Regulations 2015. And the internal auditor, as you may have noticed on the appendix of the return, that he has already signed the relevant area of the report, which assures us that gives us positive assurances in all areas. And then 1.4, to authorise the chair and the town clerk and chief executive to sign the annual governance statement and for the chair to sign the accounting statements. And then lastly, 1.6 is just to note the council's loans and long-term liabilities as at the year ending 31st of March 24 at Appendix 4. That just shows the 8 loans that Dunster Town Council have got outstanding as at the moment with the Public Works Loan Board, one of which is ending with this November. Would you like to add anything?
Thank you, Lisa. Okay, so obviously we've got 6 recommendations here to vote on and push through. Does anybody have any comments or questions on any of those? Councillor Gurney?
In which case, Madam Mayor, I move that we pass all 6 motions.
Okay, we will actually need to do them one by one.
Okay, well.
Thank you for that. So do I have a proposer for 1.1?
I propose 1.1, Madam Mayor.
That's Councillor Gurney. Do I have a seconder for 1.1? Thank you. So just to recap, that's to receive and note the internal audit report, final 22, 23, 24, Appendix 1, also presented to the Finance General Purposes Committee on 17th June 2024. All those in favour? Okay, that is unanimous. I declare that motion to be carried. 1.2, to approve a recommendation made by the Finance and General Purposes Committee on 17th of June 2024 to appoint the internal auditor for financial year 24-25. Do I have a proposer?
Happy to propose, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Seconder.
Madam Mayor, I'll have to second.
Thank you, Councillor Alderman. All those in favour? It's unanimous. I declare that motion can be carried. Thank you. 1.3 is to approve the annual governance statement and the accounting statement as part of the annual governance and accountability return for the year ended 31st of March 2024 for submission to the auditor in compliance with the Local Audit and Accountability Act 2014 and the Accounts and Audit Regulations 2015, Section 1, 2015, 234. Do I have a proposal? Thank you, Councillor.
Madam Mayor, happy to second that.
Thank you, Councillor Samara. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you. I declare that motion carried. Sign it. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so 1.4 is to authorise the chair and clerk to sign the annual governance statement. Do I have a proposer? Thank you, councillor.
Madam Mayor, happy to propose that.
Thank you, councillor Tamara. A seconder. Thank you, councillor.
Yeah.
Kapowski.
I'm happy to second that, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. All those in favour? Okay, that's unanimous. I declare that motion carried. Oh, okay, we've already signed it. Okay, so 1.5 is to authorise the chair to sign the accounting statements. Do I have a proposer?
I have proposed.
Councillor Alderman, is the motion seconded?
Second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, councillor Brenner. So all those in favour? Is unanimous. I shall sign that too. Okay, and the final one is 1.6 to note the council's loans and long-term liabilities at the 31st of March 2024 at Appendix 4. Do I have a proposer? All right, well, do I have a seconder?
So,
Thank you,
seconder.
councillor Henderson. All those in favour? And let's declare the motion to be carried. Thank you very much. Okay, so moving on to item 11 is to receive the minutes of the Dunstable Joint Committee, which was held on the 14th of March. You'll find those minutes, 14th of March 2024. You'll find those minutes at page 53 of your report, and we'll also receive a verbal update from the meeting held on the 5th of June 2024. Councillor Alderman is going to provide us with a verbal update.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I have a few updates from the Dunstable Joint Committee. So Councillor Carol Hegley is the new chair of the Dunstable Joint Committee, and I am the new vice chair, which is why I'm talking right now. At the meeting, lots of things happened and the minutes are available for all to see, but the main headlines are the councillors Steve Watkins and John Baker attended on behalf of Central Bedfordshire Council as executive members to talk through CBC issues within the town centre and yes, specifically Ashton Square and the problems we're having in Ashton Square in terms of footfall and use of the units there. And we also had updates from the police and various other organisations. Thank you very much.
Councillor Alderman. Okay, so do we have a proposer to receive the minutes of the Dunstable Joint Committee?
Madam Mayor, I'm pleased to propose that minutes of the Joint Committee on the 14th of December be received.
Thank you, councillor Jones. Is that motion seconded?
Mayor, please second.
Thank you, councillor Baker. All those in favour? That is unanimous. I declare the motion to be carried. Thank you. Okay, so item 12 is to agree the town council's representatives and substitute from Dunstable Joint Committee. You'll find the report on page 59 of your agenda. We actually already have the representatives defined as the mayor, deputy mayor and the three chairs of our three committees. So we just now need to identify substitutes. So we need to nominate 2 additional town councillors to be substitutes for the joint committee. Are there any nominations? Brennan?
I'm happy to put myself forward, Madam Mayor. I'll probably be there anyway. I'm not, it's just standing in any other capacity, so.
Councillor Brennan, anybody else?
Madam Mayor, I just have a question. On, I believe it's 2.5. Does that not give the recommendation? I believe we decided on this a little while ago about the subs. And I can see that we've got a list of names there. Are those no longer relevant?
So the issue is we agreed the 5 representatives and the 3 substitutes to be vice chairs in the normal way. The issue is that councillors Crawley, and Neil are now CBC representatives and town council representatives. So because they're duplicates, the recommendation is that we send substitutes who aren't duplicates.
Happy to.
Okay. And I think Councillor Alderman, did you want to say something?
I was going to second Councillor Brennan, but I don't know if we second each other in this.
Okay, so
Madam Mayor, I'm pleased to nominate Councillor Adams to join us on the joint committee.
okay, so then we will have a vote on those three. We only need two then.
Yes.
Yes.
So
Madam Mayor, I will volunteer to step down from that and allow Councillor Adams to go through.
That's very kind of you. Thank you, Councillor Smart. Councillor Adams, are you actually happy to put forward this?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, yes, I'm more than happy to put my name forward for substitute.
Okay.
And I thank Councillor Tawar as well for standing down.
Okay, thank
Still
you.
need your nominations, don't I?
Thank you. Okay, so it has been proposed, or it has been suggested that Councillor Brennan and Councillor Adams are our two Dunsford Town Council substitutes for the Dunsford Joint Committee. Do I have a proposer for those two? Okay,
I'm happy to propose. I'm a big fan of both councillors.
okay, the second.
I'm going to second it.
Tara, all those in favour? Oh, that is unanimous. Thank you. I declare that motion to be carried. Congratulations, Councillor Brennan and Councillor Adams for being substitutes for the joint committee. So moving on to item 13, we've got referral reports on, you'll find on page 61. And I am going to hand over to the Chief Executive, who's going to present to you.
thank you, Madam Mayor. So members of FGP will remember this was discussed in some detail by FGP last Monday. Not longer ago.
Yeah.
FGP, so the recommendation is that we release all the earmark reserve in place for Grove House for officers to commission and carry out work in order of priority as based on the survey work we've had done by our expert contractor. The view FGP took last week was that we need to look after our buildings, and if we need to spend money based on expert advice, that's probably the correct thing to do. And the members were nervous they hadn't had time to see enough information and have enough detail about what was being proposed to make that agreement. There was a note in the report members of FGP had saying that if members wanted the report, they could request it, which nobody did because it was further down in the report, and it's a big report. So this time we've given you the report, which you may or may not be grateful for. So the recommendation is that the actual total of all the works, which we really like to do now, comes to more than what's in the reserve. So the proposal would be that members would seek tenders, break that work down. Some small bits of the recommendation we wouldn't do through big tenders. So decoration work, for example, we would do by getting quotes from local decorators rather than going through a much bigger contract process. But for the big piece of work, we've put them out to tender in the usual way. So the recommendation is that you agree to release that money from the earmark reserve, the purpose in the earmark reserve for, based on the paperwork we've been provided by our professionals.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, so yeah, so we discussed this at FGP, and it was identified we didn't have any sort of idea of costs for those funds. Are there any questions or comments on that particular item, Councillor Henderson?
Yeah, can I just ask some clarification? So did you say that we have or we haven't got sufficient funds in our reserves to cover this? Sorry, I wasn't quite sure I heard properly.
We've got about enough to do the priority works. There's the way the works were costed, which is kind of indicative costing. If we did everything in there, we haven't got enough,
Right.
but we have got enough to do the priority works within that. So releasing the full amount means we can get the best costs we can and get as much work done as we can at the moment, and then review.
Okay, so can I just ask a follow-up question then? So the recommendation is that we don't go beyond the reserves available, but once you know how much it will cost, you'll prioritise it and stay within the fund.
Yeah.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, councillor Henderson. Are there any more questions? I think you've all got the estimated costs in front of you. Councillor Tomorrow, was that your
Yes.
hand up?
Madam Mayor, I'm just gonna go. Let me just look at this.
You stand, sir.
So the current reserve we currently have is 262, sorry, 226,550. I've just looked at the number. Obviously, we're short from 300,000. That's the total. 305,000. That's the total cost of the work itself. And this is what I was saying about this last week. I think looking at the details and seeing the work that's been proposed and seeing, things, actually looking at the pictures and saying, okay, there's fault here, there's fault here, you can quantify, and justify saying, yes, let's approve that, let's get this work done. This is exactly my point last time. Not that I don't want the council to release the fund and do the work, but it's so critical that we have these details to ensure that we're actually signing off on something that we actually do know about. I will say though, two questions. Are we getting best value for what's been proposed in terms of cost? Do we have comparisons in terms of cost? I think a tender process needs to happen so that we can get the best value for money, rather than saying yes, they've quoted us X amount and we're gonna go with that. I do think we can get it for a lot less than what's been proposed, and I think this is kind of work that needs to be done before we start throwing money at this. I would fully support the proposal to get the work started, especially discussing specifically the boiler elements. But I still do think, Madam Mayor, we need to get possibly 2-3 quotation from different companies to be able to get the best cost. After it just is a boiler, might be a fantastic boiler, but it is a boiler. You can get a better cost than what's been proposed, I think. Overall, I think the works based on the pictures are critical stuff that needs to be done, and I'm in support of us getting let's just get a better cost from.
Thank you, councillor Tamara. I know that Lisa wants to speak, but you're right. These costs are it's just an idea of cost. They're not actual quotes. I'm gonna move over to Lisa to come back on that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I'm just going to reiterate that point, that these are just estimated costs, and that we use this contractor to do the survey of the building, and then what the next process would be to follow Dunstable Town Council's procurement process, which, as you're aware of, the policy is quite robust, and we do need to obtain at least 3 quotes, anything over 50,000. And we will aim to do so, and obviously they will have to meet all of the criteria that we've set and you've approved in your procurement policy.
Thank you, Lisa. Councillor Brennan. Oh, I'm sorry. Were you coming back, councillor?
No, I'll rest my case. Thank you.
Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, Chair. So is this going to throw us into it's a 10-year plan, right? That they've got, that is in that report. It looked like it was over 10 years, and there's markings for what you do in each of those 10 years. So if we agree to this, are we agreeing to a full 10-year contract for having all that work done? Like, is just release of the earmark reserves for having that specific work done that is in the first year? Yeah. Cool, thanks.
Yeah, it's my understanding that those monies, the 226,550, have already been earmarked for building maintenance of this building. So it's not a full 10-year amount, it's just what we've got so far that's been put aside. So that's what this recommendation is for, is to release those funds. So tomorrow.
Thank you. I suppose it should, executive can clarify this then. When we're talking about 10 years, plan, all of this proposed and the works that needs to be done is what's in this plan, showing us, you know, in terms of summary costs, about over 300,000. I personally think we don't have to wait 10 years. We currently have 220,000 in a reserve. I think if the cost staying are done properly, you get a better quotation. I think we can actually done the work. The longer you leave it, the more problems you get. So, I think we're close to doing the work in one go if we really want to do it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Tomorrow. So I think we can move on to approve the release of funds for the Grove House Building Maintenance Reserve up to £226,550 to allow for essential repair and maintenance works. Do I have a proposer? Tomorrow?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I would be happy to propose that, but we just a slight caveat that we definitely have a tender procedure before the money is spent.
That's already due process. Thank you, Councillor Swan. Do I have a second?
Madam Mayor, I'm happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Gurney. All those in favour? That is unanimous. I declare that motion to be carried. Thank you. So moving on to item 14.3. This is something that was referenced to this full council from the Personnel Committee last week. There is a report that you would have received from our town clerk on Friday. It's basically a recommendation that the council creates an earmark reserve of £25,000 for a staff review and support. So it's been identified that the salary and the bandings of the current town council and all of the roles that we currently have filled or that we look to create, there should be a pay review of all of those. And it's not easy to get that without paying specialists to carry it out. So that is the recommendation, that we actually do a proper job of it and make sure that we're competitive within our market and within our area. And then 1.2 is that the council agrees to release the new earmark reserve to fund a pay review following the council's usual procurement process. I'm sorry, I might have gone a bit back to front with that. Did that make sense?
This one.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any questions or comments on those 2 points? Okay, well, I do. Yeah, Councillor Brennan.
Hi, thanks. Really happy to see this report. I've wanted this for a long time. It's really good. It was one of the things that when we talked to staff before, staff were very happy with. So said that very carefully. I'd like to know that. I would like to know whether we can specify within the report that it specifies any perceived gender pay gap or disability pay gap within the organisation. I don't know if that's doable or not, or whether they would be different specific reports. But any disparity with regards to equality, I know it does mention it somewhat in the report, but if we could specify that so that it definitely comes back from the report, that would be great. Thanks.
Yeah, happy to put that within. It depends on what different people quote for and say is technically possible. But we would certainly ask people giving us quotations to give us options around gender and accessibility.
Jones?
Madam Mayor, at Personnel Sub last week, we discussed it in detail and I was really pleased to see it. It's something that we as a council have asked for a number of years, haven't we? But we've never quite got to the point of being able to do it. But I think it's really important with the issues over recruitment at the moment as well. And it will help us to recruit the right people that hopefully then be able to be retained for much longer and increase our longer working cadre of our long service staff, real opportunities as well to then develop skills within and develop further within the organisation, which we've had huge success of over recent times. So for me, if we get pay right, we'll attract the right people and they will want to stay and be part of the town council's family.
Councillor Jones. Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is about whether there's been a risk assessment about what any of the likely outcomes might be from this and whether the council would be in a position to fully implement the recommendations. I know we don't know what they are yet, but whether there's been any thought about the implications of a report such as this. Thank you.
Councillor Henderson, you asked a good question. There have certainly been thoughts and discussions. We haven't got a written risk assessment. It's difficult because we don't know. There are some roles where I'm fairly confident we're underpaying, other roles where I just don't know. This would be an iterative process. So actually, there are a number of ways the process could end up. Points to highlight would be, this will end up with a confidential report to members. What the outcome, we don't have to accept any outcome. It may be that an outcome comes which is just unaffordable and members take that view and then take a view on actually do this but not this. It's very hard to call at this point, and then there may well be some impact on next year's budget, but we don't know. And just to highlight that they would also be looking at the benefits package as well as salaries. So there may be things in the round and overtime, those kind of things. So there might be flexibility in one direction and other flexibility in another direction. So there is a possibility this will come out with higher numbers than we were expecting, and then we'll have to have some discussions and reflect on what's appropriate and what's not. But I think the risk of not doing it is probably greater than the risk of doing it at this point.
Thank you. Okay, any further questions or comments? I personally am very excited to see this and I hope it gets passed because I think it's a great way of showing how we value our people. We do an amazing job in the Town Council. So if there are no further questions, I would like to ask for a proposal for 1.1 that the council creates an earmark reserve of 25,000 for staff review and support.
Madam Mayor, I'm happy to propose.
Do I have a second on?
Madam Mayor, I have to second.
Thank you, Councillor Alderman. All those in favour, 1.1, thank you, that's unanimous, motion carried. And 1.2, the council agrees to release a newly created earmarked reserve to fund a pay review following the council's usual process. Do I have a proposer?
Mayor, please propose.
Thank you, Councillor Jones.
Madam Mayor, I'm happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Gurney. All those in favour? That is unanimous. I declare that motion to be carried. Okay, thank you. So the final one I report, item 14, is any reports and updates by members of Central Bedfordshire Council on matters of interest to the Town Council. I call upon members of Central Bedfordshire Council to report on any matters of interest to the council. Are there any? Councillor John Gurney?
Madam Mayor, I don't think we have any items to bring to the town council.
Thank you very much. In that case, that concludes the business before the council. Thank you very much for being so patient with me for my first ever full council meeting. Yeah.